The human ship moved slowly through the bright lanes of hyperspace. It was small compared to the great vessels around it, long silver alien ships. Drifted like floating cities, their hulls glowed with symbols of old power inside the human ship. A man stood alone. His name was Ethan. He was not a soldier, he was not a hero, he was only an envoy sent. Because humanity had no one else, Ethan looked. Through the wide viewing glass his hands were calm, but his heart was not. This place was called the Crystal Court, the center of the Galactic Empire. Many species ruled here. None of them were human. Humans were young. Humans were weak. That was what the galaxy believed. The ship slowed and locked into place. A soft signal echoed through the cabin. The doors opened. Alien guards waited outside, tall and silent. Their armor was smooth and dark. Their eyes watched every movement. Ethan stepped forward. His boots touched the floor of the station. The air felt heavy, not thick, but powerful, as if the walls themselves were listening. He walked between the guards' long halls stretched. A head made of crystalline light. The floor reflected the stars above. Every step echoed. Other delegates were already there. Beings of metal and flesh, wings and scales. Eyes that glowed, voices that whispered. They looked at Ethan, some with curiosity, most with amusement, a few with open dislike. A human had no place here. The great doors opened. At the end of the hall inside was the royal chamber, a wide circle with a raised throne at the center, and on that throne sat the alien princess. She was young by her kind, but her presence filled the room. Her skin shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were calm and sharp. She did not move when Ethan entered. Everyone bowed, even powerful warlords, even ancient leaders. Ethan hesitated for only a moment. Then he bowed as well, not low, not proud, just honest. The council began to speak. Voices rose and fell. They talked about borders, about trade, about human expansion. Most of it sounded like judgment. Ethan listened. He answered. When spoken to, he chose his words carefully. He did not argue, he did not beg. Time passed slow and heavy. Then the room changed. The princess raised her hand. Silence fell. Instantly no one spoke, no one moved. She stood from her throne and stepped down onto the floor. This alone was unheard of. She walked slowly, each step steady, until she stood before Ethan. She looked at him not like the others did, not with mockery or fear. She looked with interest. The entire court watched. Then she asked one question. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner. She asked why humans kept helping other species even when humans gained nothing, even when humans suffered for it. The question struck the room like a shockwave. No one had expected this. Not the council, not the guards, not Ethan. This was not a question of power or loyalty or war. It was a question of nature. Ethan felt the weight of every eye. The galaxy was waiting. He could feel fear, but he did not let it control him. He spoke slowly. He said humans helped others because once they were alone, because they remembered what it felt like to be ignored, because if they survived by standing together, then others might too. His voice did not rise. His words were simple. He said, humans believed survival meant more when shared. The room stayed silent. The princess did not speak. Her eyes searched his face. Something changed in her expression, something very small but very real. She turned away from him and faced the council. She ordered the chamber. Sealed guards moved instantly. The doors closed. A ripple of fear passed through the room. Sealed chambers meant judgment or death. Ethan stood still. His heart pounded. But he did not step back. The princess looked over the gathered leaders and spoke one sentence. She said the galaxy had forgotten the meaning of strength. No one understood what she meant. Not yet. The lights dimmed. The council whispered. Alliances trembled. And for the first time in many cycles, the fate of the galaxy shifted. Because of one human answer, faraway hidden human fleets remained silent, and the alien princess stood alone, wondering why one simple answer had shaken her more than any war. The chamber stayed sealed. No one spoke. At first the crystal walls glowed softly, but the air felt heavy and tight. Ethan stood where he was. Guards remained at every door. Their weapons were not raised, but their hands stayed close. The council members looked at one another. Some were confused, some were afraid, some were angry. No one had prepared for this moment. The alien princess returned to her throne. But she did not sit. She remained standing, her eyes distant, as if she was no longer fully in the room. The eldest counselor finally broke the silence. His voice was slow and sharp. He asked why the chamber was sealed. He asked if the human had committed a crime. The princess did not answer at once. She looked down at her hands, then at the human envoy. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. His mind raced, but his body stayed calm. He knew one wrong move could end everything. The princess finally spoke, she said. The chamber was sealed to protect the truth, not to punish it. This answer confused the council. Even more, one by one, the leaders began to speak. Some accused humans of deception. Others said the human had used emotional tricks. A few demanded immediate removal. Ethan listened. He did not interrupt. He did not defend himself. He had already said what mattered. The princess raised her hand again. Silence returned. She declared that the human would not be imprisoned, but neither would he be released. He would remain under royal watch. This decision shocked everyone. Royal watch was rare and dangerous. It meant interest. Ethan was escorted from the chamber not to a cell, but to a quiet residence deep within the palace. The room was simple, clean, filled with soft light, no restraints, no guards. Inside, but he knew he was not alone. Hidden eyes watched everything. Hours passed. Then days outside the palace. Whispers spread across the station. News traveled faster than ships. The alien princess had stopped a council session for a human. That alone was enough to cause fear. Other species began to question humanity. Some recalled old encounters. Human aid during disasters, human ships that came and left without reward. Patterns began to form. Meanwhile, the princess studied in silence. She requested ancient records, human history files, battle footage, rescue missions. She watched humans pull strangers from burning worlds. She watched them lose ships to save refugees. She watched them stand between stronger enemies and weaker allies. None of it made sense, not by galactic logic in the Empire. Power was taken, never given, yet humans gave freely. This troubled her. Late in the cycle, she summoned Ethan. This time there was no court, no council, only the two of them. They met in a quiet hall open to the stars. She asked him to repeat his answer slowly, without witnesses. Ethan did. He spoke of loss, of early wars, of being ignored by greater powers, of learning that survival alone was not enough. He said humans learned that meaning mattered. Even when strength was small, the princess listened without interruption. She asked him if humans expected reward. He said no. Sometimes hope was enough. This answer unsettled her. She dismissed him, but her thoughts followed him deep within the Empire. Others watched as well. High commanders, old nobles, ancient minds. They saw the change in the princess, and they feared it. Change meant weakness. Weakness invited attack. Secret meetings began. Plans whispered in dark halls. The human envoy became a symbol to some of danger too. Others of opportunity. Ethan sensed the tension. Even without words, he noticed patrols, increasing. Noticed guards watching each other. Noticed silence where there once was noise. Something was moving far beyond the station. Signals were sent. Warnings disguised. It's routine messages. Old enemies listened, and they smiled back in the palace. The princess stood alone at the viewing glass, watching the stars drift. She wondered why one simple human answer felt heavier than all her training, heavier than every war lesson. For the first time, she questioned what her empire truly was, and for the first time she wondered what it could become unseen. The galaxy leaned closer. The palace did not sleep. Light stayed on through every cycle. Shadows moved where none should. Ethan felt it before anyone spoke. The quiet had changed. It was sharper, more alert. Guards outside his residence changed shifts more often. Their voices were lower. Their eyes avoided his. Something was wrong far above the crystal court, deep within the Empire halls. The High Council gathered without the princess. This alone was dangerous. They spoke in careful tones. Old beings with long memories. They remembered past ages when rulers had listened to outsiders and empires had fallen. They said the human was a risk. They said the princess was changing. They said change invited weakness. One voice suggested removal, quiet, clean, without noise. Another suggested blame. If something went wrong, humanity would carry it. The plan formed slowly, like poison spreading through water. Meanwhile, signals reached distant stars. Old enemies of the Empire listened carefully. They heard of hesitation, they heard of delay, they heard of internal conflict. To them, this sounded like opportunity. Ethan was summoned again, this time not by the princess. Guards escorted him through unfamiliar halls, deeper, older. The walls here were dark, marked by ancient lines. He was brought before a military tribunal. Generals stood in a half circle, their armor scarred, their eyes cold. They questioned him about human fleets, human weapons, human intentions. Ethan answered honestly, humans had fleets, but they were defensive. Humans had weapons, but they were controlled. Humans wanted peace. The generals did not like these answers. One asked, "Why humans hid their strength?" Ethan said. Humans hid nothing, they simply did not show it unless needed. This unsettled them. After hours, he was dismissed. But not released back in her chambers, the princess sensed the shift. She felt it in delayed reports and missing council members. In closed channels, she summoned her intelligence advisors. They hesitated, then revealed the truth of the council. Moving without her, anger rose not loud but deep. She ordered immediate access. She was denied. This had never happened before outside the station. Long-range sensors detected movement ships, many unmarked old rivals of the Empire. Testing the borders, the generals prepared fleets, but hesitation slowed them. Orders conflicted, command fractured, confusion spread. Ethan watched the stars from his window and understood humans had seen this before, not in space, but in history. Division always came before collapse. He requested to speak to the princess. The request was delayed, then denied. Time was running out. The first attack came without warning, an outer defense. Platform went silent, then another alarms rang across the station. Panic followed. The enemy fleet emerged from jump space. Fast, organized, merciless Empire ships scrambled, but response was slow inside the palace. The council argued, blame, past orders conflicted. The princess broke. Through the barriers, she entered the command chamber herself. Silence followed her. She demanded clarity, demanded unity, but trust was already cracked. She saw the truth. This attack was not sudden. It was invited. She turned her gaze inward and understood. Ethan was brought to the command deck. Urgently, without ceremony, she looked at him not as a ruler but as someone seeking grounding. She asked one thing: if humans would help. Ethan did not hesitate. He said humans would always help, especially when others were divided. She asked why again. He said because someone had to stand before everything fell apart. The enemy fleet advanced. Empire defenses failed. One by one, the galaxy watched. Then a new signal appeared. Quiet, controlled human ships dropped out of hidden space. Not many, but precise. Their formation was calm, disciplined, protective. They did not charge. They shielded. They placed themselves between the Empire and destruction. Enemy weapons struck. Human shields held. The first time the galaxy saw it, humans were not weak, they were restrained. The princess watched in silence as human ships absorbed fire meant for her world. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with understanding. This was the answer made real strength. Without cruelty, the battle had only begun, but already everything had changed. The battle spread across the dark edge of the system. Stars flickered as weapons crossed. The void alien fleets moved in. Confusion. Old formations failed. Commands overlapped. The enemy advanced without mercy. Their ships were sharp and fast, built for destruction alone. Human ships did not rush forward. They moved with patience, each position chosen with care. The princess watched from the command deck. Her empire had never fought like this, never fought to protect instead of dominate. Human vessels formed wide defensive arcs. They shielded stations. They covered damaged alien ships. They pulled wounded crews from space. This shocked the observers. The enemy did not understand. They pushed harder, firing again and again. Human shields flared, but did not break. Ethan stood beside the princess, silent, focused. He watched data streams. Scroll human symbols appeared across the tactical display. Alien officers whispered. They asked where these fleets had been. They asked why humans had hidden this strength. Ethan answered calmly. Humans did not hide. They waited as the battle continued. Human ships changed pattern. They began to move inward, cutting off enemy advance routes, forcing them away from populated zones. Then the counterstrike began. Not loud, not wild, precise. Human weapons, disabled engines shut down, power cores targeted, control systems. Enemy ships drifted, helpless, alive, but defeated. This was not annihilation. This was control. The galaxy watched in disbelief. For generations, humans were thought to be small, slow, unimportant. Now they were calm, disciplined, unstoppable. Alien commanders tried to regain authority, but their voices lacked weight. The princess stepped forward. She issued a single clear command. All Empire fleets were to follow. Human-led. There was no argument. Trust had shifted outside the station. The enemy realized their mistake. They attempted retreat. Human ships allowed it, but not freely. They escorted the enemy out, marking them, tracking them, ensuring they would not return unnoticed. The battle ended quietly. No celebration, no victory cry, just silence inside the command Deck alien officers stared at the human formations, still holding position, still guarding. Ethan felt eyes on him, not with doubt but with respect. One officer asked why humans stopped, why they did not finish the enemy. Ethan said, "Because survival mattered more than pride." This answer spread through the room. The princess closed her eyes. For a brief moment she remembered the question she had asked. And the answer that followed now, she had seen it in action. Strength that chose restraint. She turned to the council members present, those who remained. She spoke clearly. She said the galaxy had misunderstood humans. Not because humans lied, but because the galaxy never asked. Shame passed across several faces. Reports arrived from across the Empire. Human ships were assisting repairs, sharing resources, restoring systems, not demanding payment. The pattern repeated. This was not a display, it was nature. The princess ordered the sealed records opened. Human history was shared with the council. Wars fought reluctantly. Weapons created in fear, power restrained by choice. The Empire had never faced such a species. Ethan was summoned to speak not as a captive, but as a representative. He stood before the surviving leaders. He spoke of balance, of lessons learned through loss, of choosing who to be, even when no one watched. His words were simple, but they carried weight. The princess watched and understood. The Empire had ruled through fear. Humans survived through connection. One approach lasted, the other endured. Outside, human fleets began to withdraw, not all, just enough. They did not occupy, they did not claim, they trusted. This unsettled many, but inspired more. The galaxy shifted quietly. Alliances reconsidered, old assumptions broke, and deep within her thoughts the princess made a choice not yet spoken but forming. The era of domination had ended, even if the galaxy did not know it yet, and humans once ignored now stood, revealed not as conquerors but as guardians. The days after the battle felt unreal. Human ship moved away from the crystal court, slow, quiet, without escort. Ethan watched the palace fade into light. He felt no pride, no victory, only weight. He knew what had begun could not be undone. Behind him, the galaxy was already changing. Inside the Empire, laws were rewritten, not quickly but honestly. Old systems resisted. Some leaders stepped down. Others were removed without violence. Fear was replaced by caution. Caution by discussion. It was not perfect, but it was real. The alien princess stood before the council once more, this time not as an untouchable ruler but as a guide. She listened more than she spoke. She asked questions, questions no ruler had asked before. How decisions affected the weak, how power shaped culture, how fear poisoned loyalty. Some counselors struggled, others adapted. Those who could not slowly lost influence across the stars. Human presence became steady. Not fleets of war, but networks of connection. Human ships carried teachers, engineers, mediators. They arrived, helped and left, never staying long enough to rule. This confused many, but it built something stronger than control. Trust on Earth. Ethan returned quietly. No crowds waited, no monuments were raised. Only a room and people who listened. He shared what he had seen, what the galaxy was becoming. Human leaders debated, planned, argued, but they agreed on one thing. Humans would not change who they were. Even now, months passed, a new council formed, not above the Empire but beside it. Humans held no throne, no crown, only a voice. The alien princess often watched from her chambers. The stars looked different. Now, not quieter, but closer. She remembered the first question, the one that started everything. She wondered why she had asked it, and realized part of her had always known something was missing. Strength without meaning was empty. One cycle. She traveled without ceremony to a neutral station. There she met Ethan again. No guards, no titles, just two beings shaped by change. They spoke of progress and mistakes and fears that still lingered. She asked if humans were afraid now that the galaxy watched them. Ethan said humans had always been watched. They simply learned to live honestly anyway. This answer stayed with her. Far away, a small conflict flared. Old habits returned. Weapons were raised. Before it grew, humans arrived, not alone. Alien fleets followed, not to conquer but to stop. The conflict ended without war. This became the pattern when fear arose. Connection answered slowly. Stories spread of humans standing between enemies, of alien leaders, choosing dialogue, of children growing up without learning hatred. First, the galaxy did not become peaceful, but it became hopeful, and hope was something new. One day, the princess stood before a gathering of young leaders. For many species, she told them a story not of battles, not of power, but of a human who answered a question honestly. She said the galaxy did not change because of fleets or technology. It changed because someone remembered why survival mattered. Ethan watched the broadcast. From Earth, he smiled softly. He had not planned any of this. He had only spoken the truth, and the truth had been enough. As stars turned and generations passed, the question was remembered not as a moment of weakness but of clarity. And whenever the galaxy stood at the edge of old fear, someone would ask, "Why do we choose this path?" And someone else would answer, "Because we remember what it means to stand together." The new galaxy was not perfect, but it was alive, and it endured. The crystal court was quieter than ever. Not empty, but thoughtful ships moved slowly. Repairs continued. Voices were softer. The galaxy had survived, but it was no longer the same. Ethan walked freely now. No guards followed him. No eyes hid in the walls when others saw him. They did not turn away. They bowed not deeply, not out of fear, but with respect. This was new inside the great chamber. The council gathered again, all seats filled, all species present. This time the princess sat on her throne, calm, steady, changed. She opened the session with truth. She said the empire had been saved by humans, not by force, but by choice. Some leaders shifted uncomfortably, others lowered their heads. She did not accuse, she explained. She spoke of strength without mercy and strength with purpose. She said the empire had ruled too long through fear, and fear had invited destruction. Now the galaxy had seen another path. The council listened, because now they had too. Ethan stood beside her, not elevated, not hidden, just present. One counselor asked why humans never claimed territory, never demanded tribute. Ethan answered simply. He said humans already knew the cost of taking, and they chose another way. This answer spread quietly through the room. Another asked if humans would now rule, since they clearly could. Ethan smiled faintly. He said humans did not want to replace one empire with another. They wanted partners, not subjects. This stunned many. The princess stood. She announced reforms, slow, careful, real. No species would rule alone. No power would be unquestioned. Aid would be given without chains. The empire would change. Some protested, but fewer than expected. Fear had lost its hold later. In a quiet garden beneath artificial stars, the princess and Ethan spoke alone. She asked him why he had never lied, even when it could have saved him. Ethan said humans learned long ago. Lies built fast structures, but truth built foundations. She nodded. She admitted that his answer and his actions had changed how she understood power. She said she once believed rulers must be feared. Now she heard it, wondered if they should be trusted. Ethan said trust was harder, but it lasted longer. News spread beyond the empire. Worlds once silent reached out. Alliances shifted. Neutral systems asked for human mediation. Human ships arrived, not as fleets but as helpers, doctors, engineers, listeners. The galaxy struggled to understand. Some species resisted, others embraced. Change was not smooth, but it was moving on Earth. Human leaders watched events unfold. They did not celebrate. They prepared. Humans had been seen. Now they would be tested. Back at the crystal court, the princess addressed the galaxy. Her voice carried across channels, clear, steady. She said the age of domination was over. The age of cooperation had begun. She credited humanity but did not elevate them. She said humans reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten: why survival mattered. The message echoed. Some rejected it, some feared it, but none ignored it. Ethan prepared to leave, his mission complete. The princess met him one final time at the edge of the station. She thanked him not as a ruler, but as one being to another. She asked if humans would remain close even after returning home. Ethan said humans were never far. They just did not always stand in front. They watched the stars together for a moment. No words were needed as his ship departed. The princess felt a strange calm. The future was uncertain. Danger still existed, but now the galaxy had seen another way. One simple answer, spoken honestly, had reshaped everything, and though many challenges waited ahead, nothing could return to how it once was.